Howdy Commanders, Echo here. Today we've got a game for you on Sleeping Giant in the Tier 6 Imperial Japanese Navy Tech Tree Battleship the Nagato. Playing with Terra Wolfpack. We're spawning in the southwest side between Alpha and Bravo, but today's video isn't really about this video. It's mostly just something to have on in the background for you to watch, if you are watching, while I chat with you about something else. So there won't be a ton of commentary as to what's going on in the game. I might chime in here and there on it, but it's mostly just something for you to keep an eye on while we're chatting about something else. And what is that something else we're going to chat about? Well, today I wanted to talk to you about the fact that World of Warships Legends is a tale of two games. These are two games that have been around for a long time. Games that you've been playing for ages and that others have been playing for hundreds of years. But Echo, you salty sea dog, I hear you say. How could that be? Today is the 1-year anniversary birthday of World of Warships Legends. It's only been around for a year, maybe a little longer if you include early access. How could it be a game that's hundreds of years old? Wise observation, Ensign. Yes. Well, see, at first you'd think that you've been playing World of Warships Legends because when you turn on your PlayStation or your Xbox, you click on your game that says World of Warships Legends. But that's not actually what you've been playing. See, what you've been playing for a year or even more, if you've been around since early access, is that you've been playing an intricate hybrid of the game Rock, Paper, Scissors and the game Chess. We're going to start with how this World of Warships Legends is Rock, Paper, Scissors. See, you've got 3 ship classes in this game. One that each corresponds to the rock, the paper, and the scissors in that most simple of schoolyard games. We'll start with the rocks, which I happen to be in this game in the Nagato. Your battleships are your rocks. See, these ships are meant to take punishment. They're meant to deal punishment quickly and in a hurry. They're heavy, they can take a pounding, and they can deal out a pounding as well. They're meant to soak up punishment, and they're meant to dish it out in turn. Just like a rock. Imagine, how much damage a rock can do quickly and swiftly. A rock often just sits in one spot, doesn't move a whole lot, hard to get moving in one direction, hard to get it to stop moving in the other direction. Your battleships are your rocks. Now, to be fair, there are many types of rocks. There's rough, sharp, jagged volcanic rock, polished granite, softer limestone that's not quite as heavy, dense volcanic rock that's nearly impossible to lift when it's a large chunk, so on and so forth. In much the same way, there are different types and flavors of battleships. But in general, pretty much all the battleships in the game fill the role of being the rock in our analogy of rock, paper, scissors. And what do the rocks beat in our schoolyard game of rock, paper, scissors? Well, they smash up the scissors, right? If you throw a rock and your opponent throws scissors, you win. The cruisers are the scissors. They're the tools of the game. They're relatively quick, maneuverable, nimble. They've got all the tools, all the consumables. They've got those long duration planes, those sonar charges, the radar. Some of them have heels. Even some of them have smoke screens. These are the tools that make the cruisers into the scissors. They've also got the precision with their main batteries to slice and dice the enemy, dropping shells in exactly where they need to be. Like a pair of scissors, cruisers are super versatile. You can flip a pair of scissors open and use it like a single blade. You can use the far end away from the handles of the blades to get just a little snip. You can come up close to the handles to get extreme precision work. Just like a pair of scissors, the cruisers have the versatility to adapt to the situations and be one of the most flexible ships on the water. They can use their tools to adapt and deal with this current situation. They can switch their shell types. Battleships tend to want to shoot AP Destroyers tend to want to shoot HE, but cruisers, more than the other two classes, like to flip back and forth depending on the situation and adapt and be versatile, much like a pair of scissors. And much like how there are different types of battleships for different types of rocks, there are different types of cruisers for different types of scissors. Some scissors have wavy blades. Some scissors are teeny tiny little delicate things for doing sewing work, while others are giant shears that practically need two hands. Some are a little rough and you use them out in the shed on leather and things like that, whereas others you keep in the house nice and sharp for work on paper. Well, some cruisers are better at pushing in and being a little more aggressive because they've got the armor to take the hits and they've got the good torps. Others need to stay back at range, spamming their HE, high arcing over the islands. Some have better AP, some have better HE. Some want to play at range and kite. Others want to use stealth to their advantage and get in close before delivering a killing blow. Regardless of what exactly the cruiser wants to do, it is still in the triangle of our ship classes, the scissors to the rock of the battleship and the paper of the destroyers. Destroyers have paper-thin armor. People describe them that way all the time. They've got few hit points. They're easy to destroy and mess up. Their modules get damaged extremely easily. They're fragile and delicate, like a piece of paper. And they are the hard counter, their torpedoes in particular, to the rock of the battleship. Now yes, that is not the only role of a destroyer, and every ship has multiple roles. But in general, the torps either hitting a battleship, or at least pushing him out of the way, forcing the battleship to turn, forcing the battleship not to push in and be overly aggressive, be the boulder rolling through your formation, just destroying things. The torps prevent them from doing that. Just the mere threat of that piece of paper covering the battleship's rock is enough to change the way that they play. And this analogy gets even stronger when we go through it in reverse. Battleships have an extremely difficult time dealing with destroyers. They can't spot them. If the destroyer doesn't want to be spotted, it's not going to be spotted. It has a difficult time dodging torps. Its guns, especially because it usually wants to have AP loaded, just overpen for a few thousand damage, and then 18 to 35 seconds later it gets to try it again. Meanwhile, the destroyer is slinked away, and you'll never get to shoot at it a second time. Our paper, our destroyers, have a difficult time dealing with our scissors, our cruisers. If they try to open up in open water with their main batteries, the cruisers are just going to thwap them with the guns and kill them in an instant. Destroyers have a difficult time torping cruisers because the cruisers have the hydro running and they're dodgy and maneuverable and narrow, and they can avoid the torps once they've been spotted. Our cruisers have a hard time doing much damage to battleships. At least they should. Imagine trying to use a pair of scissors to destroy a rock. That's going to do as much damage, if not more, to the scissors than it does to the rock. And for you battleship mains out there, I feel your plight. I've been getting into battleships a little more lately. They are the class that I've been turned on to the latest of the three classes. Just starting to get up into the higher tier battleship gameplay. And I hear you. I hear you on the HE spam, the menace. It's always been in the game. I mean, Atlanta came out early in the game's life cycle. It's always been around. But it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And I hear you again also, when you as the rock catch that pair of scissors broadside at 4 or 5 kilometers and you hit it with 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 battleship shells, complete flat broadside, and you do a couple thousand damage, no module damage, doesn't force out damage con. The reason this is frustrating to you is because it's the rock, paper, scissors triangle not working. The scissors, with their HE spam and fire damage, are destroying the rock, and they in turn are not getting punished when you shoot back at them, even when they flash you broadside at what is functionally point-blank range. This is the rock, paper, scissors triangle not working, and that's why it's triggering your brain. And it's definitely understandable. Obviously, this game is much more nuanced than a simple A, B, C type of triangle. I understand that. The analogy is not 100% perfect, but in general, this is how it works. And when something is out of whack, like the fact that a pair of scissors can do more damage to a rock than the rock can do back, that doesn't make sense. Imagine if, again, player skill being equal, someone in a destroyer could just run circles around a cruiser, not get hit by their guns, or if they did, it did next to no damage, and then the destroyer just got to take out the cruiser with impunity. That would also be frustrating. So I hear you and I understand you, Battleship Commanders. By the way, quick moment here on the commentary, jump in on the game real fast. Good guy destroyer here dropping me a smokescreen. People underestimate the value of smokescreens for battleships. I instantly dropped spot from the plane that was spotting me. Now, yes, I am going to shoot here in a moment, and I will incur a smoke fire penalty because they're huge on battleships, but I will then drop spot again by staying in the smoke before my next reload cycle. If I weren't in smoke, I'd still just be spotted. And the same works for his reload cycle. Sure, he's going to shoot at me, but then before he gets a chance to reload, I'm going to drop spot. He's not going to have me acquired. Look at that big hit there. And he might even shift targets, start to move his guns. I can check, is he aiming at me? Wait till I drop spot and then do it again. So people don't underestimate the value of smoke screens for battleships. You won't remain hidden, most likely, when you shoot, but you will drop spot again before your next salvo or before your enemy's next salvo. So to wrap up our discussion of the rock, paper, scissors analogy, the battleship rocks cover the cruiser scissors. The cruiser scissors cover the destroyer paper, and the destroyer paper covers the battleship rocks. Again, I understand that this is a much more complicated game than that. The roles for each ship are much more nuanced. Some cruisers are better at actually killing cruisers than they are at killing destroyers. Some destroyers are good knife fighters and great in a close-in fight with other destroyers. Some battleships are actually pretty decent at taking on destroyers, so on and so forth. I understand that. Destroyers expect to do many, many things other than torpedo battleships, and in fact, torpedoing battleships is actually among one of the lower priorities. But in terms of what those ships are best able to do, in general, that's how it goes. Rock, paper, scissors. Now, I did also mention that this is a tale of two games that are combined, synthesized into one. That second game is chess. You've got your three types of pieces, your rocks, your pieces of paper, and your pairs of scissors, and they're assembled out on the board. Right at the beginning, they start in the spawns, which are pretty much always the same every time, and then they move about the board, and they're trying to counter the moves of the enemy team. Create angles and places and zones of control while preventing the enemy's pieces from doing the same. You've got to think about the map as a giant game board where you create zones of control, lanes of fire, avenues of approach, choke points, L shapes, or crossfires as some people call them. You've got to be constantly looking at that mini-map and thinking about it like a chessboard and thinking to yourself, okay, I'm in a rock, for example, and over on that side of the map we've got a couple pieces of paper and the Reds have some scissors. I've got to get myself over there and smash up those scissors so that they don't slice and dice my pieces of paper, and that we can continue to push the advantage and try to win this game. Similarly goes to caps and map control. You've got to create huge swaths of the map that you control. Get those cap zones, or in capture the base mode, make sure that the enemy isn't pushing in too far on one of your flanks and that you're not overextending on your flank so that you can't get back to defend if necessary. This is all the strategy, the strategic level of the game that you have to balance with your minute-to-minute and second-to-second tactical game where you're aiming down the sights and putting the cursor on the enemy and angling your armor and dodging torpedoes and so on and so forth. You've got to walk that tightrope between the tactical, shooty aspect of things and the strategic positioning of pieces on the board, controlling the map, zones, setting up ambushes, setting up L-shaped crossfires, etc. And it is those players who can balance those two things, recognize the need to be good at both things, when it's the moment of the game to focus on the tactical, when it's a moment to focus on the strategic, and it's those players that can harness that, dial it in, and master both aspects of the game that are really good, who can drag their teams kind of kicking and screaming across the finish line, have high win rates, and place high on the leaderboard consistently. Hopefully that was pretty entertaining for all of y'all and pretty insightful. I hope you got something out of that. Just take a look at the end screens here, and then we will flip over to the build real quickly, just show you real fast what I was running on that one. Took third on the leaderboard there with a little over 2,000 experience. Just behind Terra and another destroyer, as it should be on a domination mode. You shouldn't really ever see the battleships taking top of the leaderboard in domination. Now let's take a look at the build. So in that game we just watched, I was running a 12 Legend 1 Takagi. Good Day's Work selected in slot 1. Gyrating Drill Bit slot 2. Marksmanship slot 3. Emergency Specialist slot 4. Will to Rebuild in Legendary slot. Inspirations are a 7 Legend 1 Cunningham and a 7 Legend 2 Kedrov. At the time of that recording, this is all I had on the ship. Aiming systems in Module 1, as well as the unlockable B hull and range upgrades. Well, let me know what you think of all that down in the comments below, the rock, paper, scissors analogy. I know it's not perfect, perhaps a little oversimplified, but especially for those who are new to the game, it can definitely prove to be a useful way to think about the various pieces and classes in our game, as well as the fact that it is also both a tactical game of shooting and moving, as well as a strategic game of board placement and map control. Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you an awful lot for watching. And as always, stay salty, Commanders.